So, spiritual work and what it looks like. I'm going to give you for one example, and tell me what you guys do in your spiritual work, and tell me what it looks like for you. I will come back and read it, but I'm going to tell you what it looks like for me, and then we'll share and converse. What I do for spiritual work, I meditate, I chant. But I don't do it aimlessly. I always have a purpose, and in that purpose, I do dream work, a lot of dream work, and none of it is without purpose. It's all about me thinking about what it was like to be a kid. So birthing a new dimensions of ourselves was about that pod. I talked to you about the Paz Jackson character that I created. I also talked about the connection that I made with BOMBA, right? Or BOMBA. I connected BOMBA with Paz Jackson. I started to understand, I started to see the connection and relationship. Then I did the research on BOMBA, because remember, I wasn't really into her. And I was like, oh wow. I definitely was channeling an energy like that. And so then I did even more research and went back to the African origins of BOMBA, and the name was BOMBA BILA. I was like, oh, that's really interesting, BOMBA BILA. And so that was what you'll see, like the name of the deity coming from, I forget what area. You know it's going to be West Africa. It's the West African country, and I forget where exactly. And I can't see it in my mind, the country of which BOMBA BILA comes from. And that's a connection to Pomba-Gira, which is from Kimbanda in Brazil. And Kimbanda in Brazil is essentially one of those, I would say, kind of urban-like religions. You remember, think about all the people who came from Benin, people from Benin. A lot of people from Benin are in Brazil. Angola, a lot of people from Angola and Brazil. So think about those places are going to be affecting their religious practices, which is going to be Kimbanda, which is going to be Umbanda, and Candomblé. So those are the religions very similar to Voodoo or Santeria. So when I made that connection that I'm talking to you guys about, I also went back to my grandfather. As a human, he was not an impressive being. As a spirit, as an ancestor, he has blown my mind. As a human, he was alcoholic, and it was hard to really kind of connect him. He watched cartoons all day. But the weird part is that one of the greatest influences that I've had since I started a spiritual journey, doing spiritual work to learn about myself, has been him. It really has been him. And I bring him up, it's important because I talked about being childlike. He's the reason why I'll still watch cartoons. Because he watched cartoons to the day he died. All right. He's the reason why I still tap into childlike things, because I understand the magic of them. And he's the one that brought in certain things. So I'm saying this: Paz Jackson, Pomba-Gira, BOMBA-Gila, and what was a nickname that he gave me? Bonabia. And so I started to kind of connect them. I'm like, whoa, that's really weird. So when I have that connection, that Bonabia, that Pomba-Gira, that Bomba Bila, and then Paz Jackson, right? And you kind of you bring it forward. It's very interesting to me. That's what spiritual work looks like, when you're starting to make all these connections to all these paths that you have lived. And that during this time of me bringing forth, remember, this new dimension of myself, I grew exponentially. And I grew in a way that tapped me into the sacred whore, the sacred mother, and the maiden, and all those wonderful things. It tapped me into the work that I do right now. It tapped me into what it means to move energy around. It tapped me into multiple dimensions. It tapped me into all those things. That's what spiritual work looks like. And then it helped me understand that I truly do create my life. I create everything that I want to happen. And I have to figure out how to be responsible with that. And the reason why a lot of people are afraid of their own magic is because what we say does come true. Sometimes my desires for certain things will create paths for me that I'm not necessarily excited about. So I had desire to understand certain people in my life. That desire to understand certain people in my life has essentially would open up doors for me to experience those things. And so I have to learn to use my word and magic and power to open up doors that I would like. In order for me to understand all this stuff, realize meditation was key. Visiting my grandfather in astral realms and having conversations with him, setting up altars for him, because I knew that's who I was supposed to work with to get certain information, and then acting on it, and then working with it. So I want you guys to realize that, because the answers that come aren't always obvious. They aren't always clear, but I believe in them and I work with that magic. And I see this often. People are not willing to do their work and they're not willing to trust what they get. For example, if you say, I want to have this revelation about something, let's say you're doing dream work. I do dream work all the time. And then you get the answer, people aren't willing to trust that and move forward in it. Trust to me is a relationship. You know, when you have a relationship with someone and you consistently communicate with them, you're looking for consistent things. So I test it. It's not just me saying, oh, this is it. I test it. And so now that brings me to a really good story that happened this week. I had been working with one of my personal deities, and I said there was something I did not want to do. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And that personal deity told me, you will not have to do it. I said, but I really don't want to do this. I don't want to do it. And all signs said that this was something that, was like I had to do. Almost the concept of being mandatory. And my personal deity told me, we got you. And I say we because it's not just a one thing. It's a posse. I call it my spiritual posse. It's like, we have you. I said, okay, I'm going to trust you. I decided to trust. And it came to the point where I was saying out loud, I'm not doing it. And I said I'm not doing it, and I knew that, but people around me were like, okay, because no one else believed it. But I believed it because my spiritual posse told me so. Well, there comes time where it's time for me to do it. And so I went with my mother, and we decided to go to the gym. So we're at the gym, and we're walking around the track doing our thing. Then we decided to get on the treadmill to go on the incline. So to get a nice little, to get a deeper workout. My heart rate's up. I'm doing my thing, having a great time with life. Next thing I know, my mom was calling me because I was flying off the treadmill. I fell asleep on the treadmill. And I felt something spread my legs to essentially hold me up. So I didn't fall off. It wasn't like I woke up just in time. This was the interesting part. I woke up just in time, but it, tripped me out. And right there, I could feel the whole spiritual posse working. I was like, this is really interesting because the way the time worked is that there was no way I was going to do that thing because of what happened, because I was still dizzy. I didn't come back to my full self after the time had passed for me to actually do the thing. And I just trusted it. Now, you could say that was me. You could say it was my spiritual posse. I really don't care because it's an extension of me, right? I trusted in what I heard. I trusted the message there. That's why I'm saying this today, because my own life was like, wow, you stay on your path and also trust your path because because they won't let me fall. And I did not fall. And it was just a trip to me because it was almost like someone opened up my legs and put my legs on the side and kept me up. And then I was able to stay on my path, meaning I didn't backslide to do something I didn't want to do. So I trusted in what was said. And there were so many times, and then you guys know this personally, where you intended something, you said it, and you didn't trust it. And you backslide and you chose something else. And then in a way, you'll never know what if you trusted it, what it meant. But I trusted it. I just stood firm on that. I stood firm, really firm on it. And it worked out. It really did work out. And we are being programmed at all times when you watch TV, when you watch all of just being a part of the world, there's a programming happening with our visual images, which is why I go so hard on visual images. And so wouldn't it make sense if you decide that you were going to be your main programmer? You were going to decide what the script was. Wouldn't that make sense if you took control over that? That's what spiritual work is. Because remember, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. So what you intuit, what you see coming forth, to make sure that you are constantly informing your human experience with those beautiful divine messages, you are now programming yourself in a way that's authentic to you. If you are trusting yourself, you can be able to respond to your magic, and what you do, you can trust what you've done. That's what it's about. You affected by who you are, what you put out there, and the relationship that you create. The relationship that you create with all these things. So sometimes you can say, is it the crystal or is it you? Because remember, we go and we do research on these crystals that we get, and then if you really put it in your mind and say, okay, well, this smoky quartz is going to help clear any blockage that I have and help release it from me and help instill trust into what I need in my work and in the magic and the things that I'm creating. If I'm saying that this smoky quartz is going to do just that, and thank you so much for doing that, then then I'm putting that energy and power into it. This is what spiritual work looks like, and I trust it. And you're going to help me trust even more, and I appreciate you for doing that. I'm showing you. That's the beauty of spiritual work. You are no longer depending on these things outside of you. You are saying, this is what I want to come forth, and now I'm going to work with it. Magic.